Okay, I'm going to call this Montclair City Council meeting to order, and I welcome everybody in the audience and
Recording in progress.
Those who are also on the phone or on Zoom to participate in this meeting today. And as we do, we'll begin with our invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll have the city clerk please announce those two individuals.
Tonight's invocation will be led by Pastor Donald Rucker from the Christian Development Center, and the pledge will be led by Sergeant Espinoza from the U.S. Army.
Thank you. Please stand.
Well, good evening, everyone. Let's pray. Father God, you already know what you want to do here in this great city. You already have predetermined plans. So we pray in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ that you would give this council the spirit of wisdom and revelation, that the eyes of their understanding would be enlightened to those predetermined plans that you have, and that, God, that you would help them to strategize and to execute your already predetermined plan. We ask that you would bless them. Help them to be, Father, proactive, not reactive. And then give them the faith and the courage, Lord God, to make the right decision, not just do the right thing, but make the right decision in every matter concerning this city and its citizenship. And Father, we thank you for that now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Go ahead, Sergeant. Come on up, please. Podium.
Good evening. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and face the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please have roll call?
Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez. Here. Councilmember Johnson.
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Rue.
Present.
Mayor Dutre.
Present. Next item on the agenda, we have the presentation, the annual donation from the Montclair Chamber of Commerce to the Montclair Community Foundation, also for the Montclair to College program. And Steve Hammett from the Chamber of Commerce, who's the president. So you're welcome to come up, and I guess I'll stand over here if you want to make your presentation.
Okay. Once again, my name is Steve Hammett, Board Chair, Montclair Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of Montclair Chamber of Commerce, it is my honor to present a check for $785 from our annual banner program to support Montclair Community Foundation, benefiting Montclair high school students to college program. Please accept this, I was going to say large but wide check for, from the Montclair Chamber of Commerce banner program.
Great. Any pictures? Guy. There she is. Very much. Thank you, Steve. On behalf of the Montclair City Council, of course, the people of Montclair, we appreciate your support.
Thank you.
And I will say this, the College to Montclair program is a very exciting program that we've had in the city for at least 2 decades, where we assist Montclair students to go to JV College, essentially have 2 years of free tuition. And this has been a successful program. Much more happened before they start advocating for free tuition at Community College. We were already doing it 2 decades ago. So we're investing in our children in this community, and this is one way to do it. So the next presentation now, I had Staff Sergeant Hadar Espinoza do the Pledge of Allegiance, and I want to introduce Staff Sergeant Espinoza. Come on up. And he is the new Army recruiter. He covers Rancho Cucamonga, Upland, Ontario, and Montclair. He's probably the first recruiter that I can remember contact me that wants to get more involved with the community of Montclair. And I know he's also contacted the 3 other cities. And he's originally from Arizona. And I know that he came here from Kentucky, so 2 different worlds, he tells me. He says the language is a little different too. And I believe he is a 15-year veteran with the United States Army that include a tour in Iraq. So Sergeant, it's all yours.
Correct. Thank you very much. Hey, I appreciate you guys having me here tonight. Like Mayor Dutre said, I'm Sergeant Espinoza. Mayor Root, thank you for having me here. City Council members, thank you for having me here. And people, thank you for having me here as well. So I am here to be a part of the community. I met with Mayor Dutre on sometime last week. We had some breakfast, and I was like, hey, I want to get involved with the community. Basically, my drive is the youth and college students. And one of the biggest reasons why I want to do this is because of the amount of no's that I have to tell the youth because they can't join the Army. We can't help them find a career. We can't give them a $50,000 bonus. They can't serve their country because of law violations, because of their physical state, because they're just not healthy. So I want to turn that around. I want to be positive about it and serve in the community however I can to help these young people be healthy, these young people stay out of trouble, work with the City of Montclair and police chief and coming up with ideas of how we can be a part of the community, also with families, with parents, moms and dads, and be a positive influence to them. So Mayor Dutre surprised me. He's like, yeah, I want to be a part of this. I want to do this. I want to meet the families. He's willing to do dinner with them. I have my first recruit. His name's Alex Rodriguez. Healthy young man, 21 years old. He's going to be joining the Army. His job is going to be PSYOPs, which is special operations. He's going to have a top secret clearance. I actually talked to Mayor Dutre about him. We're thinking about doing a wall of heroes here in the building somewhere. I don't know if we can talk more about it, but we want to honor the youth that is serving out of this city, because one day they might come back and serve in those chairs. They might be the future of this city as well. So we want to honor them, and we want to be push out a positive influence. But I'm here for you guys. I work for all of you. I'll leave my cards out here. If you guys want to pick one up, reach out. I'll volunteer. That's what I do. I serve you guys. I'm here to help out as much as I can. I'm also looking for a superintendent or somebody that works in school to jump out of a plane on October 11th. If you guys know somebody, please reach out to me with our Golden Knights.
You need a city manager? I got a city manager. That's probably.
If I can't find somebody from the school system, I will gladly take Mr. Ben Lopez. He's volunteered to jump out of a plane. So, but yeah, we are definitely trying to get involved in the community and bring a positive light. So thank you for having me here.
Well, thank you. And I want to say this. My son, Christopher, yesterday was his 10th year anniversary when he enlisted in the U.S. Army. And he's currently in Columbus, Georgia, stationed at Fort Benning as a sergeant as well, as a comic medic. 2 kids, married, and he just got back from a tour in Central America. So,
much respect.
So what do they say? What do they say in the Army? Hooah!
Hooah!
Right? Hooah!
Yeah, hooah.
All right. Thank you very much.
For us, sir.
Next item we have is public comment, and this is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to the City Council on any item that's not on the agenda, or if there's a consent calendar item or a business item you wish to discuss, so you just announce it, and you can discuss that time. The City Council cannot discuss any item that's not on the agenda. You have a total of 5 minutes. If you're in the audience, there's a speaker's card you'll fill out, and you'll give it to Mike Diaz over here. If you're on Zoom, you will hit the raised hand feature on Zoom. You just hit that button, it will indicate that you wish to speak. And if you're on a phone, you hit *9 if you wish to speak on the phone. So I do know that there were some speakers tonight regarding the Monte Vista School Crossing. First of all, I want to say that I apologize. I know there was a Public Works Committee last Thursday, and apparently there was some phone communication or electronic communication issues, and that perhaps some folks were not able to participate in that meeting. I was told that there will be another, the Public Works Committee will meet next month. I don't have the date. Perhaps the chair here on my left can announce that date. and this item will be on the agenda again for further discussion. So what we do is we'll allow the members of the public to speak, and then I think I asked the city manager if staff can make some comments at the end of the public comment portion. So at this time, I'm going to ask the city clerk if she has any speakers.
Yes, first, we do have a speaker from Kurt Hagman's office.
Okay.
Ruby Long, and she's on Zoom.
Okay, Ruby.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Loud and clear.
Once again, Ruby Long from Supervisor Kurt Hagman's office. I just have a couple of events that I wanted to announce. Our first event is going to be the shredding event, and that event will be held on Saturday, October 15th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And the location is the Ontario Police Department. So, we want you to limit to 3 standard size boxes. And it's a huge event. People love to come by and get their paperwork and documents shredded for free. So that will, once again, October 15th. And the other event is going to be our Veterans Claims event. And that's going to be held on November 9th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's going to be at our Chino Hills District Office. And for that event, we'll have the County Veteran Service officers there. They're going to answer questions about existing claims, conduct benefit assessment interviews, complete claim forms and paperwork, and issue San Bernardino County Veteran ID cards. And all of that will be done for free, but you must bring your DD Form 214. And if you have any questions about either event, please feel free to call our office at any time, 9 to 4.
Great. I appreciate it.
And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next speaker.
Okay, next we have Susan Shay.
Susan? Come on up. Come on up, Susan. I'll put you in front of those mics right over
sorry.
there. And don't be shy. You'll be fine.
So in May, my trees were being trimmed by an SCE contractor and they damaged my sprinkler system. I've been
Okay.
working with Mr. Diaz from your office, James Diaz. He's been wonderful in helping me. But SCE is just basically refusing to fix the property that they damaged when they contracted out to whoever. Mr. Diaz has like all the information because we've had about 30 to 40 email messages back and forth, first between him and I. He provided me with a lot of
Right.
information. I have the names here, but I mean, I'm sure he could get you probably more detailed stuff than I can. And Jonathan Kyluk from the Senior Compliance Manager for the Metro East Rural Regions is just blowing me off. And my property was damaged without my consent for them to be on my property, and I just feel like my sprinkler should be fixed.
Okay. Obviously, that's an issue between Edison and yourself. We can't get involved in that issue, but if you send me an email, then maybe I can get you in contact with the regional liaison that represents this area with Edison, and perhaps that person can assist you. So this will be a different level person from Edison. So if you can see me, if I can give you my card, or staff will give you my email address, and if you want to forward that email to me, and I'll be happy to forward that, give you that contact person with Edison.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Very welcome. Sorry about your situation.
Count on some support from the city if they're non-reactive, because, residents here, I don't think that we should be authorizing people to come on my property and try to damage it.
Right.
And they're not held responsible.
I understand that very well. I know the city manager, anything else you'd like to add to that? City Manager Starr?
Well, without having a conversation with Mr. Diaz to determine what the cause of the issues are, I can't really respond at this time, but I will speak with Mr. Diaz, find out what the issues related to this particular matter are related to, and then we'll interact with SCE.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I would love for you to do, because I know Mr. Diaz.
Yeah, if you can just send us the email, I'll send it to City Manager Starr or to Monica if you wish, and she can email to both of us, and then we'll get you the right persons. And
Thank you so much.
hopefully give you a little better answer.
I just received an email today. Edison is making some changes in their field reps, and the new person will be coming on board October 1st, so.
Okay, yeah, because this person's.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
All right, next is Joseph Meza.
And Andrea, can you put in the, I don't have the field here for Zoom meetings. I don't appreciate that.
Good evening, council.
Go ahead.
Council members and
Good
mayor.
evening.
I'm a parent from Monte Vista Elementary. I'm representing some of the parents that aren't able to be here today. We're mostly concerned about speeding. There's no 25 miles an hour around school zones around Monte Vista Elementary at all. There's only speed limits on the high school, and that's on Orchard, back there, and in the front of the high school, but nothing around the elementary. I have seen accidents happen with parents hitting vehicle accidents, and also parents almost running over kids. And I really don't want to see something happen, another death happen before we do anything about this. If we could get support and see what we could do about the, pushing something, putting a speed limit or anything for our kids and our parents.
Thank you. It's noted by our Public Works Director. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Shawn Guthrie.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor.
Morning. Good afternoon. Good evening, actually.
Yeah, I'm also speaking on behalf of Montclair Elementary and some other parents that aren't able to be here this evening. And it is regarding drop-off and pickup for the children. And there's an issue where on Thursdays, the entire area is on street sweeping. And so there's literally like nowhere for parents to be parking because they want to walk their children into school. And one of the moms actually got a ticket for that, and she went to fight it. And they told her, no, you're going to pay for it. So I wanted to see if there's something we could do with signage or maybe changing the days or alternating it so it's not every single street in that area as well.
Okay.
And we were also talking about a lighted crosswalk or speed bumps in the area to also slow down the traffic and possibly prevent U-turns, illegal turns in the street. A lot of near accidents with children, like constantly. It's like a daily activity over there. So anything we can do to improve that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Adrian Koliker.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi, Mr. Mayor and all the council members. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Adrian Koliker, and I've been a teacher at Monte Vista Elementary School in Montclair for 17 years. I'm here on behalf of a young man named David Jin. David Jin was a third grader at Baldy View Elementary School in Upland when I was in 6th grade, and he tragically lost his life in front of my school as the result of jaywalking. Every day for the last 17 years, I have watched the front of Monte Vista at dismissal and seen the exact behaviors that cost David Jin his life all those decades ago. Every day I watch and cringe and ask myself, is this the day that Monte Vista will have its David Jin? The memories I have from the day David was hit are very vivid in my memory. I remember to this day the sight and sound of his mother sitting on the curb that she was standing on when she beckoned her son to cross the street, head in her hand, screaming, wailing, and sobbing for over an hour while firefighters and paramedics frantically worked on his lifeless body. I also vividly remember the driver sitting across the street on the opposite curb doing the same. I had never seen adults cry, and I had never heard or seen that type of crying. It was a horrendous scene that I pray I will never see again. I want to share that the driver was not at fault. He was going the speed limit of 25 miles an hour, and he tried to brake. But his tan pickup truck was no match for David's small 9-year-old body. They were both in the wrong place at the wrong time. I am here to beg you not to wait until this happens at Monte Vista to put in a lighted crosswalk. I know how effective these light-up crosswalks are because I pass several of them on my way to work every day. Every time I stop at one, I think of David Jin and wish Baldy View would have had one of those on that tragic day. I'm here to ask you to put one of these in front of Monte Vista as soon as possible. We see near misses in front of our school on a regular basis. It isn't a matter of if in front of Monte Vista, it's a matter of when, unless you do something. Please install a lighted crosswalk and lower the speed limit to 25 before we have a David Jin. I want to echo the words of the prayer. Please be proactive and not reactive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And John Christensen.
Good evening, Council and Mayor.
Good
So,
evening.
I am also a parent of a student at Monte Vista Elementary. We have a problem with people parking across the street from the school and making a U-turn in the middle of the school. And it's also not the people making the U-turn, but the people beckoning their kids across the street. And we really appreciate all the lighted signs that you guys have put out and that the police department has taken the time to enforce. This is so wonderful, and we appreciate it so much. But I've also seen people make a U-turn right in front of that lighted sign. And this is a hard problem of curbing people's behavior. How do we find a way to curb people's behavior? Is it to put a median in the middle of the street? Is it to put a lighted crosswalk? I just hope that we can come up with solutions to work on this problem so we don't have a tragedy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Eleni Christensen?
Hello, how you doing?
Good evening, Honorable Council, Mayor, staff, and public citizens, the public. My name is Eleni Christensen. That was my husband who just spoke. We have a 9-year-old daughter that goes to Monte Vista Elementary School. My husband is one of 3 parents representing the school site council. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak. And I appreciate that the city acknowledges how important it is to address this very deep concern. We just heard from real people who have seen tragedies at other schools. And immediately within the first 2 weeks when school started, I want to resonate the gratitude of the public, parking, police enforcement to get signage out there right away. And unfortunately, some ticketing happening because we know that we're doing our best and you're doing your best. People still don't listen. So we're trying to work with other parents to make sure that they don't wave their children across the street and that they use the already existing crosswalks. Today specifically, I'm just going to point 2 things out. We know that the Public Works Committee meeting was not able to happen this past Thursday. The next Public Works Director meeting with the director and her committee is on October 20th. However, I understand that the city is going to be implementing some public works within the next 3 weeks. I would like to ask for consideration, and I have already had the privilege to speak with the city engineer to see if we can expedite a meeting maybe for this special case involving Monte Vista Elementary School, that we can listen and learn what the city's planning to do in those 3 weeks with signage, maybe bigger signage, more of it along Orchard Street in Monte Vista, as well as the concerns involving the residents in front and putting a lighted crosswalk. I've asked her not to exhaust and disregard that, but consider all possibilities. I don't think there's one solution that will solve the problem. Unfortunately, it has to be a team effort from the residents, the parents, the community, and the people here in the public. The last item I would like to ask is, I understand that, I don't know if there's representation here by the superintendent of schools or the school district, but we know that the school district also has an important part for what is their property on their campus to see what we can do to redesign the school maybe to make it more effortless to load and unload children in the morning and in the afternoon. So we hope, and my understanding is that our city manager has had a conversation with the superintendent of schools on that matter. We are so eager to learn and listen to what has been the discussion and what has come of it and what we can do to, again, be proactive and support the public and the engineer and come together to collaborate on this solution together. Because again, the last thing I want to see is any child or anybody get ran over and have this tragedy lurking over our heads. I'd hate to see lawsuits happen where all this money goes to these things and not to the beautiful programs that the city has so graciously put grants together for. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I'm so looking forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have Bruce Culp.
Bruce, okay. Is he there? Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Can hear you. It's all yours.
Alrighty. First of all, I just wanted to offer my thanks for the service of Sergeant Espinosa there. Thank you for including the city of Montclair, and thank you for your many years of service to our country. The second thing is, after listening to some of these folks here at the meeting in the audience for the Monte Vista School, I just want to offer some support for you guys. Know that this is a little bit of a long process. I've been going to these city council meetings since 2013. I know another school was able to stay persistent and get signage around in the last year or so. So it does take time. There are studies that have to be completed. There are votes for money to be authorized, and those take time. So it's not going to happen in 3 weeks. It's not going to happen in a few months. It will probably be, some time before you guys do see some changes. In the meantime, you've got Chief Avels there in the audience, and I know he's wonderful at listening and responding quickly to address whatever he can with his staff when they're available to monitor the streets. So, he's been listening, I'm sure, and will do whatever things that he can do. And I just think that you guys, one of the main things you guys need to do, which you've already done, is just organize the more parents that are available to speak at the city council meetings, go to the public works meetings, and the city hears this, they prioritize it better. So you've already done a wonderful job of getting a lot of parents involved, working together, speaking here at the city council meetings, but know that it is a long process. It will get done. The city is, getting a lot of new money in some of their bond measures, and make sure you vote in favor of the measures that the city has, because that'll bring in more funds that go to these types of things for signage and lighted crosswalks and things like that. So just hang in there, be persistent, but be patient, because these things do take time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
I don't have any more cards.
Okay. All right, so then I'm going to ask staff, if they don't mind, just kind of updating the council and the audience, and I'll remind my council colleagues, this is not on the agenda for discussion under the Brown Act, so it'll just be a presentation. Obviously, we have two members in the Public Works Committee here as well. They're hearing this as well, and they know how they're meeting in October, and then I'll let you guys decide if you need to speed up the meeting or whatever you guys decide to do. But go ahead, it's all yours, Monica.
Mayor and council members, the public and staff, I've been working with the school district to come up with sort of a short-term solution, and as Bruce mentioned, there's a long-term solution, so it is going to take some time, but in the meantime, we've already installed, I don't know if everyone can see the exhibit that's on your screen, and I highlighted just if you see the highlights, on the north side and the south side of the school, we installed the no pedestrian crossing signs. We are going to add like 7 more signs. So it's very clear to the parents that when they're on whichever side of the street, they cannot cross Orchard illegally, and making it unsafe for everyone, really. The other problem that the school is having is that parents are parking in the painted medians. So this exhibit shows what we're planning to do there. We're going to make it a painted, solid median with some crosshatch so that cars cannot park. I mean, they can't park anyways right now. It's not legal. So we're hoping that will help. And so those are the things that we're doing right now. And like I said, I'll be happy to meet with the parents in the school district to go into more details. And this exhibit right here is in the works. We're adding more signs, more speed limit signs, and no parking signs as well on the south side, which should prevent parents to cross illegally or take their kids illegally across Orchard. So. That's it. Are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor, if I can, I want to add a few things to what Public Works Director Heredia did say. I have met with Superintendent Hammond We discussed the issues related to what is going on around Monte Vista Elementary School. In addition to that, city staff has had conversation with the principal of Monte Vista Elementary School. I believe that was as far back as May, just after the current school year ended. We had a number of recommendations that we had submitted for their consideration. Those recommendations were related to changes and modifications on the school ground property so that we could move cars off of the street and eliminate the sort of problems that we're experiencing, hopefully to create a queuing line within the school property to make it easier and actually safer for parents to drop off their students. That is, I suppose, something that still is being considered and debated internally within Ontario Montclair School District. It's not something that we can impose on them, but we are certainly continuing to work on it. One of our latest considerations is that if you look at the map right now, you'll see that the parking areas that are, there's number 6, number 5, and number 8 are within those respective parking areas. That's on the north side of the street. We are planning on making a recommendation to the school that they effectively eliminate these bump outs. And we would allow this to become a turn-in that runs the length from the east side of the area all the way to the west side, and we could put in 2 lanes in here. That would provide for a capacity of about 40 vehicles, and then on the street side, there would be a continuing curb. That would mean that parents cannot pull out of those lanes into Monte Vista Avenue until they actually get to the exit point at the west end of this turnout area. So think of the area that is on the south side of Montclair High School, where a turnout area was created there that has double lanes as well as bus lanes for the unloading and loading of passengers in that area. So we're going to try and meet with the school district and suggest that this would be an alternative to get vehicles off the street, to eliminate the illegal parking on the south side of the street, Monte Vista Avenue, or Orchard Avenue, and hopefully create a safer corridor in here where parents can drop off. There are also some alternative suggestions that we would be addressing with the school related to, again, creating safer drop-off zones and pickup zones for the parents and their students. In addition, I want to point out that during school time, when children are present, the speed limit is already at 25 miles per hour. It's posted. Parents are not supposed to exceed that speed limit. In addition to that, as you know, the 80% rule applies in California as it relates to calculating speed limits on major thoroughfares within communities. This is one of those streets in which that 80 percentile rule applies. So I believe the speed limit along Orchard is 35 miles per hour. We can possibly reduce that under a bill that was passed a year ago by 5 miles per hour. We'll look at that. We'll have to run some warrants to determine if that is something that we can do along this particular stretch. But during the times when when children are present, the speed limit is already 25 miles per hour. Speed bumps were suggested, but because of the speed limit above 25 miles per hour, state law prohibits us from installing speed humps. Speed bumps, of course, would be prohibited entirely because this area, but major streets, you just can't put speed bumps on. Speed humps you can. Speed humps you can put on, but again, the speed limit cannot be above 25 miles per hour. And because the normal speed limit along this area is 35 miles per hour, we cannot consider speed humps. I want to also point out that the council approved as part of this year's budget approximately $500,000 for the installation of flashing stop signs throughout the community. This would be the only city in the entire state of California that would have such a program that puts these flashing stop signs throughout the community. You can see on San Bernardino, across from Vernon, and on the south side of Vernon as well, those flashing stop signs are already in place. Again, we plan on putting those throughout the community to create greater awareness to the motoring public of the need to stop at those intersections that are controlled by stop signs. This, of course, is an intersection that is controlled by signalization. and it would probably not be wise to put a mid-block crosswalk at this location. One, because it would create a false sense of security for the young people and the parents who would be crossing at that mid-crosswalk. And that mid-crosswalk crossing would be too close to the intersection. And we all know that when an amber light occurs, the tendency for many people is simply to speed up, not slow down. And that would create some conflict for having that mid-block crosswalk anywhere in this particular area. It's possible to maybe consider a mid-block crosswalk at Lindero, which is further to the east, and install the type of flashing lights that we have on Benito Street at the location across from the Golden Girls softball field. However, I believe that location would probably be too far for the parents who we've heard this evening are jaywalking across the street. I mean, if they're not going to walk the 20 feet, 60 feet, 80 feet to the crosswalk at the intersection of Orchard and Monte Vista, they're not going to walk the reverse direction to a crosswalk at Lindero. So we just don't see that having a mid-block crosswalk is feasible from the perspective of the safety of the individuals using that crosswalk, primarily because of its proximity to the intersection. By doing the hash marks in the median, we understand that it is possibly only a temporary solution, but under California Vehicle Code law, a median with hashed cross marks mean that it is a solid median. You cannot cross it. You cannot enter into it. It is illegal, and it provides the police department another means to issue citations when people use that median for that purpose. So while there may be a level of education required to make certain that people understand what that means for that median when these adjustments are made, although they should know because it's typically part of a driving examination what those sorts of hash marks mean. Nonetheless, there will be an education process. We will work with the school to educate. In the meantime, the police department will simply have to have a zero tolerance related to anybody entering into that median. It works in this purpose because there are no driveways to the properties on the south side of the street. Doesn't mean that those residents would not want to make U-turns to try and park in front of their properties. But again, this is a prohibited area for parking, except I believe residents do get to park in the area.
Yes.
But we may have to even examine that if that becomes a need in order to further restrict people from using this area and making U-turns out of here. But we hope that the hash marks in the center median will eliminate that. If not, then we will look at candlesticks. Those are the orange plastic poles that you attach to grommets, and we will use those as a temporary measure. And if those continue to not work, then we will do a raised median, which will permanently restrict anybody from making U-turns in that particular area. In addition, I think we're looking at eliminating double left turns that will then allow us to further enhance safety procedures as well as further restrict U-turns at the intersection and other points along the area. So that is another measure that we will be evaluating and probably implementing. These are things that we can do sooner than later, mostly because they provide the requirement of only painting as opposed to making physical infrastructure improvements. But along the way, as we make these changes, improvements, we will evaluate how they are impacting the area and influencing the drivers who drop off and pick up children in this area. If further changes are necessary, we will certainly move to implement those. Monica has already indicated that the city has a number of grants in, and the council also approved a significant bond measure that provides funding for us to make a number of infrastructure improvements if we need to do that. Hopefully, the flashing stop signs, the no pedestrian crossing at midpoints along the street, and the changes to the median. And as we continue to work with the school district related to try and develop a safe turnout area for the parents to drop off and pick up students, will affect what we see going on there at this point in time. And we will keep the community and the city council posted along each step of the way.
Well, thank you very much, and obviously this item will go back to the Public Works Committee. Councilmember Martinez Johnson is the chair, and Councilmember Martinez. And if you keep us updated and along with the residents there updated, I'd be greatly appreciate that, Ed. So with that, we're going to move on to our rest of our agenda, and we have no public hearing items, so we'll go down to the consent calendar. And I'll start with my left. Any members on my left who wish to remove anything off the consent calendar?
I do not, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull items C1, C3, and C8.
C1, C3, and C8. C1, C3, and C8. Okay. How about my right? Anybody want to remove someone on the right?
I had wanted to pull item number C as in cat 1, but I believe it's already been pulled.
Okay. Anything else on my right?
Mr. Mayor, B like boy, 9.
B9, okay.
C7, C10.
C7 and C10, okay. All right, so we got B9, C1, C3, C7, C8, and C10. So, with that, let's start with B9. B9 is, go ahead.
That's me, Mr. Mayor. Find my page real quickly. I'm going somewhere with respect to this question. So here we are, September 19th, 11 days left in the month. Several months ago, myself and the mayor inquired about the status of the grant for the fire engine. Has any determination for that engine and that grant been made to the city as of yet?
The city has not received any notification yet from the granting agency as to whether or not funding is being available. However, I am understanding that on a weekly basis on Fridays since I think beginning of September, the announcements have been coming on a regular basis as to the agencies that are receiving the grant. That will probably continue up into early October. And if by that time we have not heard, we will be coming back to the council with an agenda item to purchase a fire truck.
And the reason why I bring that up is because the staff report with respect to these two separate vehicles to be purchased for the administration department and the economic development agency, it stresses in the report that due to the age of the vehicle and mechanical issues stemming from the vehicle being one of the first CNG vehicles on the market, there was a need for purchasing of these two vehicles. And that could very well be the case, and I would support that. But I would argue, just as if we're going to be consistent as we are with this report, if we're going to look at any need for any vehicles within the city apparatus or the city structure, we must adhere to that same thinking and philosophy with respect to the fire engine. So I'm pleased to hear that pending word, hopefully no later than the first week of October, that we would act on getting the engine quickly. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'm done with the item.
Okay, next one is C1. Who's got C1?
I do.
Go ahead, Denise.
I just have one quick question. As I read through the staff report, it looks like this program with the Christian Development Center is being implemented through June, which would be the end of the fiscal year. So my question is, I think I know the answer, but I can't help myself. I have to ask anyway. So is it reasonable to expect after the end of this fiscal year, this will continue to be part of our annual budget, or is it going to be reconsidered, or where are we going to stand at the end, after June?
Well, we have Pastor Don and Ethel Rucker want to continue the program, but I presume that they will, and we would certainly be coming back to the city council for renewal of the contract.
Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Okay, and who else has got C1?
My question been.
All right, how about C3? Who's C3?
That's me too.
Go ahead.
I have a question about where we are going forward. So this new system, the record system, is it electronic? Is it web-based? And if that is the case, then what protections are in place to ensure that our documents are kept sound?
Well, I will let Andrea Clerk, or City Clerk Andrea Myrick respond to the question. She can do a better job than I. But this is a review of our existing records management programs. Our electronic files are already a responsibility of the organization. The processes that we follow to commit all of the hard documents to electronic format are a process that we've been following. That's not really what this review is about. It's more about the existence of documents that are already in place, hard copies, the storage of those documents, and how we move forward with the development of a records retention policy that more reflects what the needs of the community are within the guidelines provided by the state of California and policies related to retention adopted by the City Council, as well as establishing within each of the respective departments a standardized way of records management as opposed to a piecemeal way that fits perhaps the needs of the individual departments or even individuals within a department. So this is more about standardization, more about education, more about making certain that the implementation of a records management program is in compliance with state law, again, as well as policy adopted by the City Council, and educating the employees on how to properly file, designate file characteristics and nomenclatures for different files, as well as the procedures related to filing and storing. So, Andrea?
Yes, I would like to add that this consultant would also review all of our current electronic records programs that we are using and make sure that we're using them to the best of their abilities and capabilities, and would also come up with some ways that we could coordinate between the different systems that we use and kind of better educate staff on how to find records, especially with a lot of our institutional knowledge leaving. We're having sometimes trouble finding documents if we don't know they exist, because the person who knew about that program has left with all that knowledge, and it might be kind of hard to find it. So this is also going to be a kind of a research project on staff's part to kind of dig into the history and make sure that our filing system makes it easy to find things that are many years past.
Great, thank you. All right, let's move on to next one is C7. Who's got C7?
That'd be me, Mr. Mayor. Based on the staff report, is the last time we went to bid for services for legal counsel December of '95?
No, it was in 2017.
Okay. And Ms. Robbins, are these adjustments to the contract and the increases in the retainer and the various billing of hours, is this something your firm is doing for all your clients, or is it just something that you're submitting to us, the City of Montclair? In other words, are you making them uniform for all your clients, or is it just something that you're keeping up with perhaps cost of living, and I don't know, whatever the index might be?
Okay, before she responds to the question, I should state that there are two different types of billings that a law firm does that has a municipal client. So the fees that she assesses to clients who are not part of the municipal agencies that Robinson Holdaway serves are typically higher because they provide a discounted service to municipal agencies. So I think there's two prongs to your question, and I think what we need to do is break it down to whether or not she charges the same to other municipal agencies that she serves as opposed to non-municipal agency clients, because every law firm assesses fees based on their client base and breaks it down amongst that client base. So individuals would typically receive a higher assessment for hourly rates of fees, but municipal services generally receive a discount, and that's probably what she needs to respond to.
And to clarify, I'm not concerned about your private clients. It's your government agencies that you are counsel to. That's what I'm inquiring about.
Well, City Manager Starr is correct, yes. The private clients are very different, and the rates are much higher than for municipal clients. But in regard to the cities, and there's just two, there's Loma Linda and Montclair, the rates are different, and depending on what area we're looking at, as far as special counsel services, they're higher in Loma Linda. It depends when they started, and then there's periodic adjustments, just depending on what the current market is charging and such. And I believe in the agenda report, it indicates examples of what we're paying to other firms. We're looking for an increase in the standard, for the standard hours over the retainer. We've been at $210 an hour. I meant to bring my file on it. I believe since 2005. So we're looking for a $40 increase on that amount when there hasn't been an increase for whatever that is, 17 years. The special counsel rate is primarily for services provided by Mark Hipsch. And Montclair has been at the rate of $260 for some years for that. And we're looking for, again, another $40 increase to $300. The hourly rate for those services in Loma Linda has been at $300 an hour for, again, a period of time when Mark Hipsch was with Stradling, Carlson, Roth, and Yoka. So it kind of depends. It's not uniform.
Okay, then it sounds like we are, in this instance, the last instance that you mentioned, it sounds like you are keeping up with the other client, Loma Linda, which is fair. I was just wondering if there was a, I guess, a bargain for us being a smaller agency or not, or if you were just trying to make them uniform, but I understand. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next item is C8.
Yes, sir. I just have a couple of questions that'll be quick. So for the victims advocates that are going to be here in our police department, how many will there be? That's my first question. And what specific services do the victims advocate provide?
So I can't tell you 100% of all of the specific services, but as it is right now, it's going to start off with one. That's my understanding, depending on the amount of workload that it entails. The services, though, that they typically provide are paperwork as far as reimbursement of lost funds, services such as like counseling and things like that when they're a victim of a crime. It's the services, all of the services that are already provided to a victim. The problem is when the police department deals with a victim, we hand them a form about having them contact the victim services. And this is going to be a more proactive approach with having the victim advocate here in the police department where they can reach out to them directly and not wait for them to call them to provide the services. But a lot of the times you'll find victim advocates along with the victim in the courtroom when they're going through trials and dealing with things, and they'll be there by their side assisting them through the entire process, assisting them in the process of trying to get reimbursement for money that might be lost or things of that nature.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Final one is...
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I overlooked one item too, and that was item C2. If I could go to that.
C2?
Yes.
All right, C2.
Question to staff, page 41 of the report. I'm just curious, second bullet point, the property management company retained by property owner would provide an on-site manager subject to the prior written approval of the police chief. I'm just curious why the police chief is the designee and not perhaps someone in planning or code enforcement?
The police chief has been the designee for all of the development in North Montclair as it relates to the hiring of a property manager. That's so that he can vet them and determine as to whether or not they are equipped to meet the standards related to the CNRs and in particular related to the provision of public safety services to the respective sites.
Has there ever been a property management company that has been denied by any development in the city?
I believe that there has been one or two that the chief has questioned, but I don't know that he's necessarily disapproved, but he can come and speak to that if he has.
If you don't mind, Chief, I'm curious if there have been, what types of things would disqualify them?
Some of the time, well, I haven't always been the person that's been making the decisions in the previous years, but in the two instances where I have been the person doing the reviewing. It's really looking at the qualifications and the experiences that an organization has had for any great length of time. One of the companies that I can think of is the one that's at the Alex and Kendry, and I believe it was the Lincoln Property Management Group. They've been around for a great number of years, and so it's been looking at their ability to provide services and how responsive they have been over the times when there's ever been an issue. And so far, for me, I haven't encountered anything really that's been problematic or a company that hasn't really had any length of experience. So I can't specifically tell you there's an absolute criteria as what would disqualify you or what wouldn't, but I certainly would tell you that if it was a property management mechanism that really wasn't a group that had long-term experience, it would be one particular situation where we'd take a much harder look at as to whether or not that would be best suited for that particular property and ensuring that the community itself is not becoming a problematic response location for law enforcement.
Well, you kind of addressed a concern. If there is no parameters or criteria set in stone and it's at more or less your discretion, who are we then to tell a developer what property management company they should or should not be able to use? I understand the intent and the goal. I'm uncomfortable, and this might very well be the practice with other developments. I'm uncomfortable with us telling them which they can and cannot use. It's their property. If they want to take the gamble of having an ineffective property management company manage their property, that's a gamble and risk they take. I'm sure they would rectify it if they found out that it was wrong. But so far, there hasn't been any under your leadership that have been denied. There's just maybe some questions, but no one has had the carpet pulled from under them.
That's correct. There's only been 2 that I've ever actually had to review. And if anybody could probably speak to it more, maybe Mike Diaz could speak to it more, because this process was developed long before I became police chief.
And probably before I was in this seat.
Well, it's important, as the chief said, for his review of the management companies that would be taken care of. We're fortunate to have had really good developers who are interested in maintaining their properties at the highest levels.
Right.
And for that reason, it's been easier for us to be able to also piggyback on that desire of their part for managing their properties well. If we did have a management company that didn't do a job good, not only it's a risk to them, but it also impacts the city and our ability to be able to get control of these things in a timely fashion. So the chief's work in helping to vet these individuals or companies is important. And if ever he needs to elicit any not advice, but input from staff, planning, or city manager's office, then we're willing to help him on that.
Well, can we then, as staff, create some set of criteria then that could be applied uniformly to developers in the future? Because here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about a developer saying, look, I provided a top-notch company, but you've denied it at whoever's chief discretion. And therefore, we may get accused of being inconsistent in our application of the policy. That then concerns me. I'm sure this will move forward tonight, but thinking very nearly in the future, we got more developments coming down the pipe in that area and even just throughout the city. That's my concern. I think that staff needs to create criteria that you could use in your both respective departments that would cover your end, so we're not accused of being inaccurately playing favorites or applying our own application of the rule unfairly or unjustly. And I think we as a council, my colleagues, need to seriously consider directing staff to do that. It could be basic, and it could be something as simple as you said, Chief, but we got to have it in writing so it's there and it's plain and simple. I just think that would cover us, and it would prevent any potential legal action from any developer or anybody, or even a property management company that may accuse us of disparaging them.
I think that we do that. I think that we do that because we simply follow the guidelines of the professional management companies' requirements related to their own vetting process and what they require for members to be a part of their association. We don't look for anything outside of that. We simply want to make certain that they are in compliance with those basic standards. In addition, this really is a promotion of the CNRs, which are the guidelines that the property management company is required to follow. Those CNRs are approved by the City Council and the Planning Commission. They are also agreed upon by the respective developers. The developers also recognize and even welcome the fact that there's a review of the property management company that they select and submit for consideration by the city. And as the chief's indicated, we don't take a position to try and remove anyone. We simply make certain that they are in compliance and meet the standards. It's sort of a double check that the developer has already gone through to confirm in our own mind that the selected property management company meets those standards, and the chief doesn't really look necessarily beyond those standards. His primary interest is to keep a longer-term perspective on the property management company in the event that there is an increase in the number of police calls to a particular property, and it gives him an opportunity to work with the property manager to see if they can develop plans of action that will allow a reduction in those calls, whether that means to focus on some of the tenants that are living in the units or other protocols. So for example, the problems we've experienced are related to parking management. Council will recall that at the early onset of the Paseos project, there was a parking management problem because of the way that the property manager was administering the parking management plan that was adopted by the Paseos property manager, introduced to the City Council, approved by the City Council. They weren't following the plan. So this gave the Chief of Police an opportunity, as well as Community Development Department, an opportunity to work with them to develop alternatives that will improve property management on the site so that there was not an impact in surrounding neighborhoods and on-street parking. So that really is the ulterior or the primary motivation for putting this requirement in there, to give the chief a long-term opportunity to work with the property management company to make certain that the CNRs that they agreed to comply with are being maintained and upheld, and if not, then it gives us that input to try and turn it around so that we can achieve the objectives that meet what the City Council asked them to do in relation to approval of the CNRs.
You stated something several sentences back, and I should have interrupted and had you hold your thought because I'm forgetting my thought now. You said that the chief would not necessarily be tasked, or the intent of this language is not for he or she, again, whoever the chief may be present in the future, to deny usage of a particular property management company. It is more a vetting process. However, if that's the case, then he's just that's just an administerial function then we're giving him. But based on this, we are indeed giving the police chief the power to reject and deny. It's not just administerial. And then I do want to touch on the police calls, because that's the next issue, because there's an issue there requiring additional funding from the developer. You touched on that in your comments, but I want to get back to this role here.
In reading this, it states here the written approval from the executive director, police chief, which approval shall not be unreasonably withheld or delayed. Again, this is page 44 of 179. So unreasonably withheld or delayed, provided the on-site managers or persons signed from the applicable property management company to manage the property are appropriately qualified and meet the property manager job description attached hereunto as Exhibit B, which Exhibit B is part of this other packet here. So there is some criteria already built into that. And I want to say there's one reason why this is here, because I asked for this to be here, I don't know what decade, last decade probably, when Linda was around.
With the Paseos project in 2012.
Yeah, and the reason why we have this here is my experience in working for another city where I was involved in bad neighborhood issues. how important it is to have a very strong management standards and obviously personnel that are practicing those standards to ensure that property is well maintained, it's safe, it's functioning very well. It's not become a nuisance to the community. It's not driving up calls for service. And so this is the reason why we have these parameters in here into this agreement. So this way we have at least some say in what that property manager is. So if these guys, a developer wants to hire John Dutray as to be the property manager and I have no experience, or they want to hire John Dutray and the only buildings I manage are in bad areas where there's a lot of calls for service, I'm pretty sure the chief's red flag will go up and say, I don't think John Dutray is qualified to be a property manager here in Montclair, if that was the case. So I think everything's covered here. Exhibit B, go into it further, what that standard is, so I think we're fine.
Well, back to my point. I just am uneasy, though, again, with it still being something that is open to interpretation.
I think Exhibit B does the interpretation, so.
Well, it may be, okay, let's take what you say.
Well, I think, Ben, I think we've gone way too much time on this.
Well, I have one more
Has
point
the
for
developer
it.
raised any issues with this, Ed? This clause? Any challenge by the developer?
No, the developers have worked with us on
Then there's no
this.
challenge by the developer on this.
I have a second point with respect to this, and that is the fourth bullet point regarding police calls. Should the calls for police service of a serious nature in the project exceed a level reasonably considered normal and customary for the size of this project, as determined by the police chief for a consecutive 2-month period, the property owner would be required to increase the amount and frequency of the courtesy patrol unit such time as the police chief determines. So we're going to require additional resources from them. And again, what is customary? Because it says what is customary for the size of project as determined by the police chief. Is there presently a standard that determines what is customary? Because right now we have the Alexan there, we have other developments, the Paseos. What is the standard and the custom right now for volume of calls for these high-density developments?
So I don't think you have a specific framework. I know what you're trying to do, and I understand, I think, where you're trying to go with it.
Because your standard might be one set of standard, but in the future, it could be totally different.
Well, generally, that is true, but generally, we're fairly consistent with the process because many of us have come up along the way and we have an understanding of the dynamics and the types of calls that are occurring in a general given area. For instance, at a bar location, we set a standard for security at that particular location at the onset of that particular business, but as time goes on, if it requires additional response and police calls for service, we may require them to increase it by 1 or 2, but there isn't an absolute number that says, well, if you get 10 more calls this particular month, you're going to have to add 1 more security guard. It's looked at from a holistic standpoint as to what's really happening there. And so when you try to narrow it down into an absolute framework like that, it actually kind of pigeonholes us into that absolute. So if you have 10 calls or 20 calls or 30 calls, there's a bail schedule essentially for it, and that makes it more difficult for us to apply more control or less as needed depending on the calls for service.
So I think an easy way to look at that is consider a time continuum. There's an experience level that tells the police department that over a extended period of time, this is a standard or typical number of calls at a particular location. There may be aberrational fluctuations that peak up and down below that continuum, but if those peaks are more than just a peak and they continue over an extended period, that actually now moves the continuum up. That would be an episode that would come to the attention of the police department that would then suggest that there is an increased requirement for services.
In looking at this item, I just am trying to put myself in the shoes of the developer. I do not want them, or this developer, or any future developer, to say that any agreement somehow was open-ended, not thoroughly written out. I am looking because they are making huge investments, millions of dollars of investments with respect to this development in particular, to not have to dole out either more resources or money that they don't necessarily have to because of the opinion of a city staff member saying that they don't comply. And that's where I'm getting with this, and that's where I'm a little bit uneasy.
Well, again, the developer has not challenged this language, so.
Well, I will reach out to the developer after tonight.
Well, if you
then.
want to reach out to the developer, it's fine, but I also remind you that we have modified our zoning. We brought in these high-density projects for high development, and in return, we're asking that the developers or whoever the property owners to ensure that they're well-maintained. And, you know, if we're going to request a developer to pay or the property owner to pay for more security service because things are out of control, we have to justify it ourselves because, you know, if they disagree with us, then we have no choice but to take them to court because we have to get a court order and we have to go in front of a judge and justify it in front of a judge that this is what's happening and this is the reason why the property owner needs to pay for more security services. So.
And this is one of the reasons why I've spoken from this seat that I have been in favor of asking developers to pitch in a little bit more money so it would cover 4 additional officers because no doubt their development is going to increase a number of residents and those residents are going to require more services from police, fire, human services, you name it. So we should be asking for a little bit more from them as other cities in the region do. Fontana has great success with that. And they even fund 1 or 2 officers on their budget and engine, and we wouldn't be in that situation or in the situation we're in if we actually did that.
You have to justify that.
I understand that. It's very justified.
You have to justify to do all of that.
I understand that.
That's why we're doing the CDV, the Community Facilities District, to pay for the stuff.
And I am fine with the developments coming ahead. I'm fine with this project. I voted for it in December of 2020. Right. It's just these particulars that have me a little bit uneasy, but with that said, I appreciate the chief staying in front of us and answering all questions. Thank you, sir.
Okay, how about item C10?
What's the page number on that one?
Somebody has, somebody pulls item C10.
So we're going to be addressing some alleyways again, I believe.
Yeah, before you go on, I believe you have a conflict on item C10. That's why I thought you pulled it.
No, because I don't own property at all in the area.
But you reside on property behind an alley?
I do.
Do you pay rent?
I do not pay rent at the moment.
City Attorney, do you have an advice for the city council member of an alley behind him? He does not own the property and appears he does not currently pay rent. Is that a conflict of interest issue?
Unless it creates a financial interest for him to vote one way or the other. And if it does to an immediate family member and it's a substantial interest, I don't know if the repaving of the alley behind the house creates a financial impact on property owned by family members.
Right, but he can also recuse on this one item, but participating on the other alley improvements he wanted to as well.
That's up to the council.
That's up to the council member, but just to let him know. Okay, it's all yours.
Questions regarding the alley. Now, I asked a couple months ago if the alley in question, alleys, but one particular, the south side of San Bernardino between Helena and Monte Vista, was due for a repavement like the north side of San Bernardino was a few years back. And if I understand the staff report correctly, there is close to $900,000, $850,000 in the account that needs to be expended by February of 2023. One, that it is projected that that amount will cover all 5 of the designated alleys, correct?
Yes, that is correct. There may be a residual that has to be covered by bond money, but we don't know until the bids come in.
Now, is the numeration of these alleys, 1 through 5, is that the order in which they're projected to be in, or is that just at random? That's just a listing?
I think that's just a listing.
Okay, now, for the alley, the issue I have is, as alleys are done, if I recall the north side of San Bernardino being completed, there was a serious problem for residents posed for parking because they no longer had access to the backside of their property for the duration of the demo and then repaving of the alley. 2, issue regarding street sweeping issues on days that they would normally have street sweeping. And then trash pickup. what is going to be the process for trash pickup? Because presently the alley in question, for me, trash pickup happens on a Tuesday in the rear of the property. If that's going to be temporarily blocked off to residents, one, where would those residents park? Because that's going to be a serious issue. But two, where would trash pickup happen, and how would the street sweeping mechanism be addressed?
Well, it would be individual to the particular project. Some of them, residents have driveways, garages. They can park in the driveways and garages, whether they're off of the alleyway or whether they're off of the street. Other residents that don't have driveways in the front of their properties obviously are more dependent on the alleyways. If they have driveways, or rather garages or parking ports on their back property, then they can park in those areas. That doesn't mean that they can have ingress and egress off of the alleyway while it's being paved, of course, which I think is germane to the basic point of your question. And those are issues that are simply part of a paving project. We have to work around that. Sometimes residents will be required to park further away from their property. If they can't park immediately adjacent to it, whether or not that's because there are restrictions on the street, on street paving day, or other restrictions that may be related to permit parking, that sort of thing. But certainly when it comes to the alleyway, when there is construction work occurring, there is going to be restricted access and exiting from the alleyway. Residents will be notified well in advance of the dates in which the project will occur. And typically, when the paving occurs, it is really only a matter of hours before somebody can be back on the pavement. New processes, the tamping down techniques, and the cooling off period required for asphalt these days is pretty low requirement now. So I think that you see when we pave streets, vehicles within an hour are following the improvements that have been made to the street, and that will be the same thing for these alleyways.
I just went through that in my neighborhood, and
Yeah.
it got paved, and the same day it got paved, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours later,
Yeah.
I was able to drive on it again.
So it'll be minimal.
Yeah, and as far as when they removed the asphalt, I mean, you work around it, but you're able to drive on the asphalt. And I suspect that street sweeping will be, for that day, will be voided, or whatever the case may be, and to satisfy the residents.
Correct.
We have limited access for that 1 day or 2 days, wherever it is.
Now, there will be concrete ribbons that will go down the center of these alleyways for the drainage of water, which in concrete requires a little bit more time to cure than asphalt does, and that could minimize or further extend the time in which somebody can use the alleyway. But again, that will have to be determined based on each alleyway, and we will certainly give the residents along those alleyways plenty of advance notice to prepare. And as the mayor indicated, we would make adjustments to street sweeping and would work with Burtech to make certain that refuse services can continue to be provided, whether that's using the alleyway or using the street on a particular day. But we would try to do the timing and scheduling of the alleyway improvements so it doesn't coincide with the street sweeping and refuse pickup days.
The alleyway that was done on the north side of San Bernardino, I believe it was 5, 6 years ago now, I recall, staff, 5. That did not take a week's time. That was a very laborious process that took several weeks for them. That same mechanism and dynamic will happen on the south side of San Bernardino. This will not be a quick paving and one-day type thing. This, if it's indeed going to be the way the north side was done, this is going to take at least 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a month if I'm not mistaken, like the north side was, and it was done in the winter. The homes in Area 2 on the map and Area 1 on the map do not have driveways. There's no access for them to park
Okay,
in
so
the
do you want
front.
to remove him? You want to just remove them off?
Well,
the
no, John,
I know other parts of Montclair love to have them, but you want to just remove it then? Is that the solution?
Are you done, sir?
Well, you're deliberating this issue of closing 1 month. I don't believe it's going to be a 1 month. I do believe it's going to be a very short period of time. The question is, do you want to move forward with these 5, or you want to make changes to these 5?
I just want some assurances to accommodate residents, because at
And
least...
I believe the city manager just gave, excuse me, the city manager just gave the assurances. I think it's time for us to move on here. I think we deliberated way too long on this issue here. And I do believe, in my opinion, you probably should recuse yourself on the Samuel Street alley. That's my opinion. I know the city attorney says something different. but you're focusing a lot on the San Bernardino City, this alley behind the house that you're residing in. So, is there any more comments or
I
questions?
do
on
have
the
more
consent
comments,
calendar?
sir. I do, and they're relative to and germane to the issue. They're not just willy-nilly being
Well,
pulled
I
out of
think-
thin
I
air.
think, what other issues do you have?
As long as I'm not going to be interrupted, I'm going to continue. Now, with respect to number 1 on the map, Mr. Starr, and number 2, those homes face major thoroughfares in the city where there are no driveways in the property. Now, those residents that
I
live
think,
in those...
again, I'm going to move for approval of the consent calendar. Do I have a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Council meeting in a month, and you're going to rush this? Well, there's plenty of time, John. We have
Okay.
plenty of time to deliberate.
I'm
It's
going to
our
ask.
only meeting this
I'm going to ask
month.
for a motion. I'm going to ask for a electronic vote on the motion.
Well, which items, sir? Because there's some that I'm not going to be able to vote on the full
It's
consent
for the entire
calendar.
consent calendar right now.
I would ask that certain items be pulled for separate votes, please.
You want to announce what they are?
I was going to, if you just give me some time. For sure, item C10, C Charlie 10. And that'll be it. I will just pull that particular item. I would ask that we give more time
Okay,
for
so I'll
that
make my
item.
motion for the approval of the consent calendar with exception of item C10. Is there a second to my does a second to my motion?
I'll second that
Agree to
then.
that? Who is the second? Okay, so second by Councilmember Martinez. Let's have electronic vote. Okay, I move for approval of item C10.
Second.
Second by Johnson. Can we have electronic vote? Thank you. And I just want to recognize the records in the audience. I know that you guys are playing a good role in terms of helping Gabe and code enforcement of homelessness, and congratulations on this approval this evening. Thank you. All right.
What was the total on that vote?
What's the vote there, City Clerk?
There are 4 yes votes and 1 no vote.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll move down to communication, and I'm going to start with the city attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 items as indicated in the agenda. One is to meet in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957.6 regarding a conference with our labor negotiator, Mr. Starr, involving those agencies or associations listed. The second one is to meet in closed session to discuss pending litigation in the matter of George versus the City of Montclair.
City manager.
No items, Mr. Mayor.
Myself, so we have a announcement for a community stakeholder meeting of the City Council, Planning Commission, and the Community Activities Commission on Monday, September 26th at 6 p.m. This will be held at the Senior Center, and this will be hosted by KTUA to discuss the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So that's the announcement there. I do want to say some things. First of all, I'd like to have a next meeting, a closed session to conduct the city manager's evaluation. Is there any objections to that from the city council to hold that in closed session? If
What
not-
time?
I'm sorry?
When and what time?
The next city council meeting, which would be October what day is that? October 3rd. It's part of the regular city council meeting, closed session. I do want to announce that I did have an opportunity to attend the League of California Cities Conference in Long Beach, and also attended the chamber installation. I am excited that the city has reopened our indoor youth programs, and I know this past Saturday, if I'm correct, or the Saturday before, we were doing signups for youth basketball. So I want to commend staff for committing to reopening the youth sports and the indoor youth sports in this case for this fall. And then finally, I also want to commend staff for Saratoga Field. I know that the Little League is started their fall league, and I know the main staff, along with Mayor Pose, have been out there trying to get I believe the 2 fields in good shape. There've been some challenges there, unfortunately, but I understand things went well this past weekend. With that, I'll go start with Mayor Pro Tem Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will, I wrote a few things out. Number one, and I know we have the Ruckers here and Mr. Fondario. I'd like to see, in the next couple of weeks or months, if we could agendize something where we can have a discussion about homeless veterans. It's a real problem, not just in our community, throughout California. These are men and women who have served our country and are sleeping on the streets. There are some examples out there, not specifically for, but there's one for veterans, but the tiny homes concept is really catching on. This Saturday, I will be at the ribbon cutting for one of them in a city a bit of a distance away from here. I think it's important. We need to find a way to house our veterans and to get them back into being productive in society. They have the skills, they have the training, and we do a good job as it is, but let's see what we can do. I'd love to see if we can have our own little tiny homes, veterans village or something like that. There's funding from the state, there's funding from the federal government. Down the line, depending what happens in November, if Senator Rubio does wind up representing us, she has the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust. Something can be done with that. I'd like to see what we could do and agendize something down the line. We have our faith-based community. I know they'd be willing to help. So let's see what we can do. Is there some concurrence? We want to at least look at this?
I'd be in favor of agendizing such a discussion.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay. So we can look at that. I don't know what meeting we will have because it looks like October's already full, but see what we can do because I think it's very important. The tiny homes themselves, it's a shelter for them, and if we follow a model similar to what other cities have done, they've been successful 90 to 100 days to transitional housing and then some type of support services or a job. So let's see what we can do on that. As the mayor mentioned, League of Cities, I'll try to keep this fast. In some of the different, just not the meetings themselves, but talking to attendees in the hallway, I kept hearing the word gentrification, and I find that an offensive term. In the dictionary, it says gentrification is the process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. That's not what cities should be doing. Let's not worry about whether the rich people have a place to live. Let's worry about whether the working class families can live. And I said that a couple of people in the league, these attendees weren't too happy with it, but that was just my view. Gold Line, Mayor Dutre and I did attend the Gold Line JPA meeting last week. Very productive meeting. During the meeting, there was an opening on the regular Gold Line board, and that went to Mayor Tim Hepburn from Laverne. They are the next city east on the line as it moves towards Montclair. And with the support of Mayor Hepburn and Mayor Dutre, who represents SBCTA, they named me as the voting alternate delegate. So if some reason Mayor Hepburn can't be there, I will be the voting delegate. It's an interesting group because most of the people on there, the JPA, have really close ties to the legislators. It's not just, oh, they're our legislator, hi, how are you? They have those personal contacts, and I think that's important in building the trust we need. I know Mayor Dutre does that quite a bit with SBCTA, and in working through them, bringing this region together. So I'm honored to be able to do that and continue to move forward. And the last item I will talk about. On September 8th, 2022, Elizabeth II, Queen of the United Kingdom and head of the Commonwealth, passed away. The UK is our closest ally. Her funeral was today in London. We see the affection of her people, all races, creeds, colors, lifestyles, and station of life. We witnessed this in lines for her viewing that stretched for several days, and believe it or not, were 6 to 10 miles long. People waited in excess of 30 hours. It wasn't just ordinary people. David Beckham waited 15 hours. Some of you may know the Formula One race car driver, Lewis Hamilton, a personal friend of the Prince William. He waited 12 hours in line. These cues showed us the affection people had for her. For me, there was a moment watching this on TV when the trumpet player did the last post from Westminster Abbey, followed by 2 minutes of silence. The silence that followed, that 2 minutes, I believe, was even louder. This was how things end. In an immense quiet, an era came to a close. This was our moment of history. Time doesn't stand still, it never does, whether for the head of state or a nurse on a shift. The new Elizabethan era in which most of us had grown up is finished. The 20th century boys and girls who are now gray-haired parents and grandparents, they will have their own memories. There were many, many tributes across the globe, and one of the ones I thought was very, very fitting came from Kenya's Uhuru Kenyatta. He was just finishing his term as president. He said, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II was a towering icon of selfless service to humanity and a key figurehead of not only the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth of Nations, and he added, where Kenya is a distinguished member, but of the entire world. I'm going to close with a quote she made. She said, when life seems hard, the courageous do not lie down and accept that defeat. Instead, they're all the more determined to struggle for a better future. And that's what all of us want, every one of us, no matter our race, creed, color, where we come from, our nation we're from, we all want that better future. So let's all of us just make that commitment to continue to make a better future. Thank you.
Councilor Lopez.
I have a few items. On August 23rd, the mayor and I and the First Lady of the city, Mrs. Ann Dutre, we attended the 50-year anniversary for Rodrigo's restaurant. Rodrigo's used to be Don Jose's on the corner of Central and I want to say Moreno, but it's not. Arrow, thank you. They used to be Don Jose's. They're one of the longest running family-owned restaurants in the city, one of the longest. And they survived COVID, thankfully so. So for them to celebrate 50 years is quite the accomplishment. So it was an honor to celebrate with them and have some fun. On September 17th, which was this past Saturday, as the mayor alluded to, Montclair Little League opened up again in their fall season in baseball. So it's great to see the kids utilizing the fields and back to playing their condensed season, but nonetheless their fall season. And I do want to thank the mayor for the updates that he was giving me with respect to Saratoga Park and some issues that Public Works was addressing and fixing, or addressing rather, regarding some irrigation and piping problems that have happened outside of external forces that were affecting issues that needed to be addressed. So thank you for that. As I stated in my comments earlier, this is our first meeting in a month, so a lot has happened. And I am still going to do this and offer the extension. On September 5th, which was Labor Day, what would have been our council meeting that we did not have, it was Mayor Dutre's birthday, so a very happy belated birthday to you.
21.
And he was able to drink at the Rodrigo's event. No, I'm teasing. I wanted to publicly thank firefighter Captain Ian Dewell, engineer A.J. Vasquez, firefighter Joseph Mezzo, firefighter Ryan Barron. All four of them left on or around August 30th for 2 weeks and helped partake in fighting the Fairview fire for 2 weeks. Away from their families, away from the city, they are to be commended. So thank you, gentlemen, for your continued service and doing a superb job and professionalism. Want to thank City Manager Starr for addressing the residents' concern on Mills Avenue regarding some dumping from others on her property. I will tell the resident to reach out, that staff has been trying to reach her, but to no avail. I will tell her so that way she can perhaps reach out to staff to get that issue addressed. So thank you for that. Also, as you recall, there was a young resident of ours who was the victim of a stabbing in the neck, head, and face a few months ago. Her mother has shared with me that progress is remarkable and she is recovering leaps and bounds. And the words that the mother had told me, Mrs. Osorno told me, is that she amazes me every day with her recovery. Recovery is slow, but nonetheless, she is recovering, and that is great. She would ask for your continued prayers for her and her family and the student. As you could imagine, that is a traumatic experience that was unnecessary that she had to face. But Mrs. Osorno has an issue that, Mr. City Manager, I emailed to you regarding a code enforcement issue that she would like addressed. If you could please have staff get to her, she would greatly appreciate it. She asked me to bring that up to staff at the meeting. And Mr. Mayor, while you were out, Mayor Pro Tem Rue brought up the topic of looking into agendizing an issue for veterans, housing, and homeless issues. I'm not going to speak for my colleagues on the dais. I stated that I would be in favor of that. I know Mr. Mayor Pro Tem requested that. I believe Ms. Councilmember Johnson nodded her head in agreement, but she can confirm that. I wanted to bring that up. It was timely because I noticed an article that Claremont was offering their homeowners $20,000 to build ADUs on their property. And I believe, I don't know the exact same square footage, but $20,000, and then if they have 500 square feet or less, $10,000. I don't know where they're getting the money, but nonetheless, the issue of accommodating housing and homelessness is no doubt on other cities in our region's minds. I think it is worthwhile for us, the next council meeting or the second one in October, to have that agendized to bring forth the topic that Mr. Rue had brought forth.
It's specifically relating to housing for homeless veterans, similar to a tiny homes village or something of that sort.
And I think we should entertain that. And then just one final...
I believe Claremont's getting the money from the San Gabriel Valley Regional Housing Trust.
And then just one final question. In our last budget, we had approved an earmark for employees to get a $1,500 inflation adjustment of some kind, a one-time allocation. Have all employees on our city payroll received that check?
No, not all employees have yet received it, but the payments have gone out.
Are the remaining employees due to get them anytime soon?
Well, it's a labor negotiating issue. I shouldn't be discussing it here in front of the council at the public meeting.
As I recall, I don't believe when we adopted the budget, we put any type of ramifications or parameters. It was just to be given to everyone, and there was no stipulation about any contract or status.
No, your council did not, but the labor group did.
Okay. That is it, Mr. Mayor.
I also want to point out that it would probably be more convenient if this housing or homeless issue be brought up as a workshop so that we can be more global in the conversation and give the council an update. And our code assistant manager has been wanting to do that anyway. So we'll be planning a workshop related to all of the different homeless-related programs that the city has, as well as examining needs related to veterans and an examination of the tiny houses program. In fact, city staff is planning a tour of the facilities in Baldwin Park so that we can evaluate them as to whether or not they would be adaptable to the Montclair community.
And if you're planning that tour, let me know if I could make it. I would like to be there. I know the mayor and Councilmember Hernandez. They take me on tours of it, and I think you'll appreciate seeing it. It's something that's fairly doable in most communities. They look like little.
Okay, so Ed, you're recommending that this item brought by Mayor Pro Tem be included in a workshop to discuss homelessness, veterans?
Yes, we had planned on doing that anyway. In fact, we were just discussing.
You guys have a month you're going to do that in? You know what month you're looking at?
No, but I doubt that it will be this fiscal year. It's a very complicated project or program. There are a number of things we have to look at, including looking at the tiny home issue. So I would expect it would be sometime in early 2023.
In early 2023? Okay, I mean, you mean the calendar, you're not fiscal year. Okay.
Yes.
All right, early 2023. Okay, everybody agree with that? So, okay, how about Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just I just have a few items. There is this coming Saturday and Sunday, September 24th and 25th, there is another e-waste event at the Montclair Chamber of Commerce. That is at 8880 Benson Avenue, Suite 110. It's a touchless event. You put your e-waste that you don't want anymore in your car and pull up and somebody will take it out and you'll be on your way within seconds. So we hope to see you with your clutter that you want to get rid of on Saturday, September 24th and Sunday, September 25th. And then there is a casino night happening here in the Senior Center that is being hosted by the Seroptimists. It's a really fun event. It's a small fee, but when you walk in, you get handed some money to gamble with. So it's fake money, but you get to gamble with it. And there are lots of raffles and opportunities for prizes. Again, it's hosted by the Seroptimists. One of the Seroptimists, Juliet Orozco, is in the audience right now. She probably has tickets if you're interested. And lastly, I want to invite you to the first annual Haskell Fall Festival and Car Show, which is on November 4th. So there will be a car show that will be like from 10 to 2, I think it is, and then there's an all-day festival there. So the Habit hamburger truck will be there. So any person who makes a purchase inside of Haskell, it could be $1 or $100, whatever you choose. But if you make a purchase in Haskell, you'll get a ticket and then you get to go to the Habit truck. So it'll be a really fun event. There'll be lots of vendors and activities for the children, and I hope that you can all join us. That concludes my comments.
Okay, thank you. Finally, Councilmember Martinez.
Yes, thank you. Just one quick thing. We have at least 40 students, OMSD students that receive perfect test scores on their state exams that are being recognized September 21st at Vernon, I believe at 5:15 p.m. So congratulations to those students for hard work and the great test scores. Keep it up.
Everybody show up.
Okay. All right, with that, we have committee meeting minutes in the agenda, and we're now going to closed session. Thank you.